So what has been proposed by different researchers and policymakers is that within each member state of the EU, there will be a government coordinating mechanism that will bring migrants into the currently existing entrepreneurial ecosystem and enable migrants to have access to the same resources that nationals would have. So this will facilitate some elements of their challenges and address some of the needs, but it will not address all of them.
Welcome to the ELIAMEP podcast series. I want to welcome in this podcast two women that from a different place have experienced what it means to be a migrant woman. Cheryl Novak, she's a research associate in ELIAMEP, and Shafi Qias, a woman that crossed mountains and the sea to come to Europe and Greece. Thank you very much for finding the time to have this discussion, Cheryl and Shafi. And I want to begin my first question with Cheryl. You have worked with migrant women to improve their integration outcomes through entrepreneurship. Do men and women migrants have different socioeconomic integration outcomes in the EU? Cheryl.
Thank you, first of all, for inviting me today and giving me the opportunity to speak a little bit about my work and some findings. So the idea of creating an additional pathway towards the socioeconomic integration of migrant women in the EU through entrepreneurship, this is premised upon independent and EU-funded research that clearly shows that migrant women have significantly lower integration outcomes than their male counterparts. And this is attributed to many different reasons. Keeping in mind that migrant women in the EU and Greece, they have diverse backgrounds and skill sets. They also face additional gender-related obstacles, such as what we would consider an unequal division of labor at home, or they may have come to Europe as single mothers. And some have also been, unfortunately, victims of gender-based violence and abuse by the time they come to Greece. And this necessitates an additional and different forms of support. So as a result of these very complex challenges, it's often difficult for migrant females to access the workplace. So the idea of supporting them through entrepreneurship, it's to provide yet another pathway that may enable some women to have a better work-life balance and also capitalize on their unique skill sets or even language skills. Admittedly, however, this is a difficult one.
Shafi, could you share your personal experience of how you came to Greece? How was it for you?
In generally, I want to say this first. Thank you so much for inviting me in this podcast to share my experience about how I faced with all of the problem in moving. I born as an immigrant generally, and I'm from Tajikistan, and my grandparents from Tajikistan, they came in Afghanistan, and then I born in Afghanistan, and then after we came in Iran. And after many years, when we were living in Iran, and we couldn't make home for ourselves. That's why all the time we were looking for a house. That's why we decided to come to Europe. We walked from Iran to Turkey through the mountain, and then after, from Turkey to Lesbos, we took a boat. And then we came with a boat. We were almost 40 people inside the boat. And we arrived in Lesbos.
Yes, you arrived in Lesbos, the Greek island.
In a Moria camp. I don't want to say camp. I think we can call it jail, It wasn't like a camp. Because everything, it wasn't our choice. For example, the food, security for women, poison food. And then after 2 weeks, when I saw all of this problem, me and my family, we decided to do some demonstration, some protest. And for 3 months, we were doing that. And then we get inside the government office. And then after that, they gave us some paper to leave Lesbos. And then we came in Athens. We were living in a squad in this squad, almost 400 people, we were living together.
Well, I don't think that we made you feel very welcome. We know what happened and how was Moria. How difficult was it for you to attain asylum, Shafi? After you came to Athens, your living conditions were again very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And how was it for you? Could you get your asylum?
To be honest, I was so lucky because the process of my getting asylum, for example, to accept as an immigrant or refugee, it was quick. But to take for example, your document, it takes a lot of time. You have to wait at least 1 year to take it. But yeah, it for me was easy, but I don't think so for everybody. It was with like me, you know.
Yeah, I understand. I completely understand that the situation is very difficult to get the asylum.
Yeah, but we should not forget that at the time we came, it was so nice and better than, it wasn't so nice. I don't want to say this, but the process was better than now. It was more easy.
Yes, because you could come to Greece. They let you come to Greece, even if your first impression was Moria, but you were able to come to Greece, to Europe.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to add this one. No one wanna leave their security place. I mean, security means they know the community. They know how to speak. They know where they can go, the culture, everything. Nobody wanna leave this safety or this security and to come in some country. They don't know the culture. They don't know the language. They don't know anything. They have to, because of the situation. They already suffer a lot of things. You know, all of the people that are coming in Europe, they already suffer a lot of, and this was the reason they are coming, and they are coming or they came.
Cheryl, we heard what Shafi said about the boat and arriving in Lesbos, and we witnessed the tragic shipwreck in Pylos with more than 600 dead. And unfortunately, not even one woman was rescued. What do you believe led to this calamity that again impacted women more than men?
As anyone who's following this tragic event realizes that still there are various media reports and they're trying to illuminate exactly what had transpired. And we're still waiting for some fuller, more extensive queries they're still being worked on. So I would like to be a bit cautious in drawing conclusions. But I think that your question highlights two key points that I would like to touch upon. One element has to do with the specific event in the location of the women on the boat. According to different reports, which have been corroborated by some of the survivors, and which has also been highlighted by a New York Times investigation, it seems that the ship had 3 levels, and these levels were divided by class and gender. The women, along with the children, they were not in the bottom of the ship, but they were on the 2nd level. So as a result, it was unfortunately impossible for even a single woman or child to escape when the boat listed and suddenly capsized during the night. So that is the information we have at this point, which is a specific explanation of why not even a single woman was able to be rescued. The greater the greater picture, though, and the issues which have been discussed by researchers and policymakers, in which Shafi touches upon in her explanation of why she went through everything she went through to come to Europe, unfortunately still have not been effectively addressed on an EU policy level, and they're still being discussed. And this is, why do women and children, despite the significant risks and loss of life that they could encounter on the journey and the very difficult situations that they face when they actually arrive to Europe, why do they continue to migrate through irregular channels? And what can we do to protect them, either along this journey or to create a safer pathway for them leaving their countries of origin? Unfortunately, this is still not appropriately addressed on an EU level.
No, because I believe that the plan is not to have migrants and refugees. Actually, I think that the whole plan is heading towards that direction. So everything else is not so important for the EU or for some countries of the EU. That's my feeling, seeing in the new plan for migration and asylum.
Yes, I would have to say that your conclusion does reflect a change in overall policy approaches in the EU. Right now, a lot of the approaches are focusing on deterrence. So rightfully so, it's how can we make situations very difficult so it is harder for migrants to come. There is a lot of fear-based policy making, and politicians are embracing the feelings of their populace, which went from a further left approach to we're moving towards the right. And we see this through rhetoric of different European leaders. And of course, this makes it very difficult of refugees and legitimate asylum seekers to actually be protected effectively within the European context. So looking at the human rights filter, we have a lot of work to do. But unfortunately, the EU is also losing out on key growth drivers. We see in other places in the world, migrants are a source of economic growth and inclusivity. So this is also another negative impact from current EU policy on migration.
Now, Shafi, what additional challenges did you face as a woman migrant?
If I say I didn't have any challenge as a woman because I didn't marry, I don't have children, and this was one of my good option to live in Athens. Also, I'm very, I think, lucky to have some skill, and everyone is not like me to have this skill, and they have different kind of skill.
You have been trained in sewing, and you had your own fashion show. That's what you mean by a skill that helps you.
Yeah, it helped me a lot, but because my job is in a society, they accepted the woman's job, as a woman's job. And that was for me more easy to do something. But other women, they have a different kind of stuff, and then the different skill, different job, but they have a lot of challenge and then problem, definitely, when they want to start, because I know some of the women, they struggle a lot, do something to make money, to support their family.
Was it your original intention to stay in Greece? You want to stay in Greece? Or are you thinking that maybe things will be easier if you move to Germany or another country?
In the beginning, I don't want it to stay here because I didn't mention this, because we are immigrant from Tajikistan, and so for all the time we start our life many times from zero. When we were in Iran also, and 3 times they evict us to the Afghanistan, and then we came back, and then we start again and again. And then it was so tiring for me. I had a lot of experience like that. And then it was so hard for me because I already, and I start my network, my society, my community, I built these things. I didn't start my business yet, but I built my network and then my community. But my family, they're not here. They already left 2 years ago, and I'm still here. Also, the people from Greece, to be honest, they support me a lot, and I found it very nice. They're very warm people, and then very supportive.
You have been trained, as we said, in sewing. We have had your own fashion show appeared in Vogue, and you are now working for Apple TV. Do you believe that you bring something unique and different to the Greek market?
In Athens, since I think 10 years, from 10 years ago, so far, it's changed a lot. It's a kind of multicultural and international place. For example, 10 years ago, Israeli or Apple, they never make anything to collaborate with the Greeks. But now you can see it. For example, Cherry from US, and then most of my friends are from UK, and I think it's a good place for bringing something. But the only things I can say that because I'm sharing my knowledge with the people, like I'm teaching the skill I have. But with some women, maybe they could do something. They could make some, for example, to support their family, to make their own things, at least if they cannot work on this, at least they can make something for themselves.
Well, Cheryl, do you believe that entrepreneurship is truly an integration tool for migrant women? And can you explain a little bit how it works?
So, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, entrepreneurship is indeed a tool, but it's very difficult. This is not only on account of the additional challenges that migrants face, and particularly migrant women, but this is also due to the fact that, in general, the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Europe is underdeveloped compared to other parts of the world. And even European women have lower entrepreneurship rates than women in other parts of the world. This is, however, slowly changing on account of bureaucracy. For example, these struggle with basic issues such as getting and renewing residency permits, opening bank accounts, and other issues that are technical bureaucratic issues linked to this documentation. And all of these are essential for starting a business. And the final challenge, which it applies to most European contexts, is the lack of accessibility to financing mechanisms. So this is a problem not only in Greece, in Europe as well, because migrants are a great source of economic growth in many countries. In Europe, it has not developed a mechanism to tap into this potential. As a result, the issues of access to financing, it's something that is currently being examined and considered very carefully by the European Investment Bank. And hopefully, over the next few years, there will be more targeted financing mechanisms that have been tailor-made for migrant entrepreneurs.
Before I go to Shafi, I want you to explain to us how things work in Greece, and if things are more difficult in Greece than it will be if someone is in Germany or in Sweden.
Okay, so based on some research that was conducted across 7 European countries, we see that in general, migrants to a greater or lesser degree all face similar challenges. And the first layer is bureaucratic. The second level of challenges that are faced, but can be to a lesser degree in other European countries, is the development of language skills. So many aspiring migrant entrepreneurs express that they need support with language skills and also business related terminology. In Greece, it can be a little bit more difficult than it is in other countries that have a highly sophisticated coordinating mechanism to support the integration of migrants. For example, in Germany, this is a state-sponsored approach. So you also don't have the challenges that exist within the Greek ecosystem, where a lot of these services are supplied or they're provided by nonprofit organizations, which apply for EU funding. They have funding for a little while. When the funding runs out, these services are no longer available. So what has been proposed by different researchers and policymakers is that within each member state of the EU, there will be a government coordinating mechanism that will bring migrants into the currently existing entrepreneurial ecosystem and enable migrants to have access to the same resources that nationals would have. So this will facilitate some elements of their challenges and address some of the needs, but it will not address all of them.
Well, listening to Cheryl, Shafi, what would you say? What would you change in the asylum process here in Greece? What would you? How would you do different things here? If it goes up to you.
If it's up to me, I will close all of the camp. The camp is, for me, is like you are putting the people inside the jail, and then they are not criminal, and then they are living like a criminal. And then I will change this because already the people they have a lot of things in their mind and in their life. So many problems, so many issues, and then when they get inside a camp, they mentally they will completely they will become crazy. But people in the Europe, they don't know about all of this problem. People when they are living in camp, the people living in camp are. In the end, when they get out, and then they after I don't know how many years, and they had their own safety or privacy or something like this. After that, they have to find a psychologist to talk about all of the issue, all of the problem and mental problem they had it from the camp. And then also the process of the asylum, for example, when you want to renew your ID, you have to, or passport, doesn't matter, you have to wait to take it 1 year after. It doesn't, and the process is so hard and then so long, and then it's frustrating. This to the issue, if it's up to me, I will change it. I definitely do that.
You said that your parents have left Greece. Where are they now?
They are living in Germany.
And is their experience there better than Greece? Is Germany more organized and more welcoming?
To be honest, everywhere when you go, there is a process you have to pass it. But in Greece, it's longer than Germany. For my family, as I heard from them, it wasn't so hard. But in Greece, it takes a lot of time for us to take our document.
Shafi, if you would give an advice to other migrant women that are thinking about crossing the Aegean Sea and coming to Europe, what would you say to them? What advice would you give them?
First of all, I want to say tailoring is not a very specific job, and then to become something or to do it. But because I had a goal, and then that goal give me the direction, and then go forward, and then do more stuff. And then I didn't give up, and all the time, because I remember my first collection when I did it, because I promised to myself I should do that, and every single night I was thinking how I can do it, because the situation I was, and I didn't have money, I didn't have any support. It was completely me, and then some of my friends, for example, Dila, and Dila helped me a lot to do my stuff, to make it true. But when I was doing this stuff, I was crying because I had a goal. As I mentioned it, for example, tailoring is not a very specific, but I did it. The most important, they should have a goal. I believe because energy and then karma, they will show us the direction. The most important is to have a goal.
So, Shafi, you never regretted that you left Iran, that you decided to make that difficult journey?
Not at all. I'm so happy I did this, because when I was in Iran, I never had a good experience there. In Iran, living as an immigrant is the worst things, because you don't have right to go to the university, to buy the house, to even you cannot have a motorbike, you cannot have cars on your name. You have some Iranian guy can do this for you on their name, and also you never open your own shop. You can't, because it's forbidden for an immigrant to open a shop in Iran. You have to work for them. That's why I'm so happy I did this. It was a very risky and then very hard, and then but I'm so happy I did it.
Cheryl, after all the research that you have done, have you fully understood the real demands and needs of migrant women regarding entrepreneurship? What should be done so that things will be easier for them? And for us, because we will gain from all of that. You said that from the beginning, because it will be also something that we gain as a society.
Yes, so there are multiple research projects that have corroborated the same information. And what is interesting is that you see that many of the demands of migrant women for entrepreneurial support services, at least within the context of Greece, they're very similar to the demands of Greek nationals. And the level of development of a country's entrepreneurial system has a very large impact on how successful or what the opportunities are. But in terms of migrants, the additional challenge is related to the level of inclusiveness in the provision of services. So throughout Europe, these services that I mentioned before, they traditionally target European nationals. They're done in their country's language, and they use channels and means that are very familiar to nationals. This makes it very difficult for migrants that might not know the system, that might not speak the language, to access these services. And they're also, in many cases, not available even in the English language. To end on a positive note, I would like to highlight that through the research, we do see different areas of Europe that are experimenting with the idea that entrepreneurship, if supported appropriately, can be a pathway for socio-economic integration, and also it can be an opportunity for growth. So within the region of Seville in Spain, they've come up with an interesting approach that actually offers a speedy residency permitting process for migrants that want to open their own businesses. So if you're a migrant that shows up in this area and you are keen on opening your own business, it will actually be faster for you to get a residency permit, and you'll be facilitated even through the renewal process, as opposed to a migrant who is looking to become an employee, for example. And they've developed some mechanisms that also facilitate in matching them with financing, which I mentioned earlier is another key problem. So if we take a look at some of these cases and the outcomes and the level of integration, how it has improved and how it has actually come up with innovative business ideas, leading to economic growth and improving inclusiveness and integration. These are some of the best case practices that we can learn from, and that could be applied to different contexts.
Shafi, what are your plans? If I may ask, what do you want to happen in the next year in your life?
Definitely, there is a new collection. It will happen. And because I'm already working on it. And then I will try to set up my business. Just want to add something about you asked me the process of the asylum. What do you want to change? It's up to me. Can I?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I just want to say, because the process is too long, and then when you get your asylum, and then after that you have to find a house, you have to find a job. All of this, it's up to the document you should have, because if you don't have that one, nobody give you the house for rent. No one hire you for the job as well. This is the worst part of the process. Until when you get it, you have to wait it, because one of my friends, he's run away his ID, and then now he cannot apply for any job, and he should wait until when he get it.
So in the meantime, he cannot do anything.
No,
He's in limbo. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because every places they are asking for a new ID. It's in the process,
To have his new ID, but if that take 2, 3, 4 months.
No, after for example, when I did it, it took 1 year for me to get it back. Exactly 1 year.
And in that 1 year, you cannot do anything.
Exactly. You cannot do anything. You cannot apply for any job. You cannot rent a house. You cannot nothing.
So what did you do? You stayed in the camp? You stayed by friends?
No, I'm living in a house. I'm living by myself.
Well, I want to thank you both very, very much for having this discussion, which showed us how things work and the things that must definitely change. Shafi, thank you so much, and I wish you all the best. Cheryl, thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience with us and your research. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much also for having me, and thank you, Sherry, as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Shafi. It was a pleasure to hear from you again, and thank you, Odin.
Thank you. This was another ELIAMEP podcast with Odin Linardatou. Recording, editing, and sound editing by Petros Karpathiou. Follow us on the ELIAMEP channels on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and elsewhere.